And welcome to Used Car Heaven here on Men and Motors. Well, we thought today might be a nice, bright, sunny day with the temperatures in the 70s. In the end, it's dull, it's overcast and it's cold. And we thought it might be sunny today because we've picked out 3 convertibles for this week's guest, because that's what he wanted. We've got a Mazda MX-5, a BMW Z3 and an MG 1.8. We'll be meeting him very soon. Also coming up on this week's programme, Simon Hughes, the god that is the car doctor, is back in the surgery, and Brad is digging deep to bring us more insider tips at the Trading Post. But before all of that, we need to meet this week's viewer. This week joining us on Used Car Heaven is Alistair Richardson, who's 32 and from Wakefield. Alistair is married with 2 children and works as an IT sales manager, and he currently drives a new shape Audi A4 turbo diesel. But he's reached the age where he wants a second car to have fun in, so he's after a roadster with a budget of around £9,000. Hi Alistair.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. At the moment you've got what, the Audi?
Yeah, I've got an Audi A4 1.9 TDI.
Which is a cracking car.
Yep.
But you want to change it and get a second car?
Yeah, we're looking for something just for me really. I'm being a bit selfish. I'd like something to go to work and back, just me and my briefcase really.
So what sort of budget have you got to spend?
Somewhere between about 8 and 9k.
About 8 and 9k?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more for the right car possibly?
Yeah.
If 10 maybe?
Yeah, if we see the right thing, then I'm sure we can stretch to that.
And what attracts you to a roadster?
Well, it's just the fact that I've never had one before. I've had a coupe, I've had a 4-wheel drive, I've had an executive car, but now I just want something, I'm going through that middle-aged, the old change, so I just want something a little bit more sporty and just something I've never had before, really.
Okay, what about this? This is the MGF. Great badge, great heritage, mid-engine roadster, 1.8. It's got the revised interior as well, which is a big step up for me over the older cars.
Yeah, well, the MG, as far as I can see, it is a nice looking car. As you say, a great heritage, racing heritage. There's a few doubts in my mind about the MG to start with. People that I know that have had them in the past, just some of the reviews I've seen. But I'm looking forward to driving it and just seeing how it goes.
Okay, it's just over £9,000 this car, about £9,200. It's a V-Reg, so it's 3 years old now. Mm-hmm. Not bad money. What about this BMW Z3? Again, it's got the right badge on it. Now this is a little bit more expensive, this car. This is a 2-litre, one of the revised cars. I mean, for this one you'd be paying about £14,000 or £15,000, but you can get Z3s within your price range. So we thought we'd offer this one up, see what you think of it. Okay. If you really love it, then you can go and look for one for about £10,000. Yeah,
well, I've had a BMW before, one of the lower end 3 Series. I was very happy with the car. A little bit underpowered for the size of the car. It was obviously one of the smaller engines. But being as this is a 2-litre, I'm looking forward to getting in there and seeing how it works.
It is. I mean, it's 150 brake horsepower. It's actually the most powerful of the 3 cars today. It cost £24,000 new, this, and now 14 or 15. So it's holding its value reasonably well.
Yep.
And finally, we've got the Mazda MX-5. The car that sort of pretty much started off the roadster tradition again back in the late 1980s when they brought the first MX-5 out. Mm-hmm. Again, they've had various revisions over the years. This cost about 19 grand new, and this is just under £10,000 now.
Well, I've heard a lot of good things about the Mazda MX-5. Obviously very popular. Lots of them out there in the marketplace, so I'm sure I could get a good deal on something like this.
It's a pure driver's car, this. I think you'll enjoy it. We need to take it out for a drive. Jump in.
In 1990, Mazda brought out their MX-5, and until then there was no market for 2-seater roadster sports cars. Now there's a whole raft of imitations. The Z3, the MGF, all owe their existence to this, the Mazda MX-5. Over the years it's been refined and then refined some more to get the car we've got today. It's an 1800 fuel injected engine with ABS and power assisted steering and lots of other refinements. Now it has been adopted by the ladies who lunch and hairdressers that lunch, and the car has got a real problem. But if you get inside and drive it, you're reminded about what a 2-seater roadster is all about. Inside it's luxurious without being flash, if you know what I mean. Lots of leather, radio cassette, electric windows and mirrors, but it's still got that plasticky Japanese feel. But don't let that put you off, because this car is all about the drive. This particular car has got 45,000 miles on the clock. It's an S on a 98. Quite frankly, the mileage shows it's a little bit rough around the edges, but again, it represents great value, £10,000. That includes the garish gold paint job, which apparently adds value. Not for me, it doesn't. Anyway, I've always had a soft spot for MX-5s ever since I wrote one off, but that's a different story for another day. Alistair, I heartily recommend it.
Give me a fat beat!
Thanks, Brendan. Well, car number one for Alistair is the Mazda MX-5, and this is what, it's an S-Reg, so it's 4 or 5 years old now. How many miles has it done? 45,000 miles?
Yeah, 45.
Cost nearly £19,000 new, but now just under the 10 mark. What do you think of it?
Well, it definitely feels like a roadster should, I think.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, the handling is it's so sensitive.
It's spot on, isn't it?
Yeah, you know you're driving a roadster, and around these country roads, you know, it's a joy to drive, really.
It is. So what about the power in it, Alistair? Does it feel quick enough for you?
I don't know. I mean, I was driving the A4 diesel. It's a very torquey drive.
Yeah.
This, I was expecting a little bit more, to be honest.
Were you?
I thought it'd be a bit quicker, yeah.
Any major dislikes about it at the moment?
Not really. No, I mean, you could do with a little bit more power, I suppose, but that's only a minor niggle. It drives well. I like that. I like the feel and I like the interior.
Give me a fat beat! Give me a fat beat! Give me a fat beat! Give me a fat beat!
Alistair, the MX-5, how perfect, how good is that car?
Well, 99%. The only thing I'd say about this car, just a little bit underpowered, but that's not a huge problem.
You're not too worried about that, are you?
No.
Everything else, I mean, the driving position, the seats and the gearbox, everything is just right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what a roadster should be. You're in the car, you park the car, you know where you are with it.
It's the right sort of money as well. It's within your budget, you know, £9,000-10,000. You could maybe spend a little bit more, get a slightly newer one, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there, smacking the, you know, it's exactly what I wanted. Everything, all the extras that you need.
There's just not much to criticise about the car,
No,
is there?
not really.
Okay, that's car number one. We'll be going out in the BMW very soon. But first, before that, we need to head off to the surgery. Here's the car doctor.
Today we're looking at Rover K-Series engines, and to show you this I've got a Rover 200 400 series car here. Well, this K-Series engine is actually a specially designed engine which is fitted right across the Rover range, from MGFs, Big Rovers, Little Rovers, Caterhams use it, Lotus use it. It's a very, very good engine, but it does have a problem, and this engine is actually designed very cleverly in that it's made up out of different sandwich layers bits of engine, and it has these really long bolts that go from top to bottom. And it's quite an unusual design, and it's the only type of engine in a car today that is that design. But it has a major problem, and that is the head gasket problem. Now, the engine is made up of different parts, as I said, and the top bit is the cylinder head, where the valves are, and the lower down bit is the cylinder block, and in between those we've got this gasket that seals the oil galleries and the water galleries and the compression, and they're prone to failing on K-Series engines. Now, this is the tip. You can't really stop yours from failing at the moment. However, when you come to get it repaired, you could get a new modified Rover gasket to fit to it, because Rover have recently brought this out with special oil seals on that will hopefully prevent it from happening again. So you don't necessarily have to take your Rover to a Rover dealer's to get this part fitted, but do insist at your local garage, if your head gasket does fail, that you do get one of these modified items fitted. That way, hopefully, you'll only be getting the job done once.
Thanks, Simon. There'll be more from the Car Doctor next week here on Used Car Heaven. But on this week's programme, we're looking to find a new roadster for Alistair. He has around £9,000 to £10,000 to spend. We've been out in the Mazda MX-5, which he liked a lot. What about the BMW Z3? Well, here's Brendan with more about the baby BMW Roadster.
As growling, prowling two-seater roadsters go, this has to be one of the best. No one could accuse this car of being a hairdresser's car. It is absolutely stunning. If looks, performance and convertible car is what you want, Alistair, this is one of the best. Have a look inside, it's beautiful. No matter what BMW you look inside, whether it's a 3 Series compact or the huge 7 Series execs, it is unmistakably BMW wherever you look. Silver rimmed dials, this beautiful motorsport steering wheel and gear stick in here, full leather interior. This is only a 2-litre model, so it does lack things like air conditioning, etc. But it's beautiful, absolutely stunning. Now this model is a particularly nice one, silver paint, leather trim. It's got about 28,000 miles on the clock and it's a V99 plate, so it's about £15,000. But Alistair, if you shop around, go for a higher than average mileage model, say a P plate, then sacrifice also things like alloy, the paint job, the leather, then you should be able to get a very nice Z3 Roadster within your budget. You may also have to make sacrifices on the engine size, say a 1.8 or a 1.9, but shop around and you should get yourself a nice model.
Thanks very much, Brendan. Well, Alistair, this is the BMW Z3. It's one of the later models and it's got the nicer engine in it, the 2-litre, 24 valve, 6-cylinder, 150 brake horsepower. It sounds great, doesn't it? It's a lovely, lovely note to it.
Yeah, this car's got a fantastic engine. So it's 2-litre. I think it's a V6, and it does make a massive difference. The weight, the power it's got, the pull it's got.
Yeah.
It's a good car to drive. I like it a lot.
What do you honestly think about it at the moment?
It drives. Some of the other cars you're a little bit more in tune with.
Yeah.
This particular car, I think it feels like a much bigger car.
You think so?
Yeah, the steering's quite heavy. The controls are quite heavy. You've got that solid feel that you probably would get with a car from this manufacturer. So this is perfect for going up and down the motorway. But I don't know how good it'd be around the windy, twisty bends. It's not quite as good to drive on the country circuit, which is what I tend to do most of.
Yeah. So Alistair, that's BMW's Z3. It's a car that comes in for a lot of criticism, and I think a lot of it unjustified. I don't think it's a bad car at all. What do you think?
No, the engine in this particular one, the 2-litre, is absolutely phenomenal.
Sweet, 6-cylinder engine, 150 brake horsepower. It sounds fantastic. Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's got a great roar on it. The driving position inside is good. Not quite as good as the MX-5. The equipment level is great, but yeah, it's a good car.
The downside with this car is that it's the most expensive of the lot. I mean, at 15 grand, it's a bit out of your budget at the moment, but you could definitely find a Z3 for around 10 or 11,000 pounds. A very nice one too.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a 1.8 model, I would suggest. And what I might find there is that wouldn't justify not getting an MX-5.
Okay. So not bad, but maybe not quite as good as the MX-5 perhaps
Yep.
at this stage. All right, we'll be out in the MGF in part 2 of the programme. Also on the way in part 2, Brad will be at the trading post, and that's all in a couple of minutes' time. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Used Car Heaven. On this week's programme, we're looking to find a new roadster for Alistair Richardson, who has around £9,000 or £10,000 to spend. We've driven so far the Mazda MX-5 and BMW's Z3. What will he make though of the MGF, a 1.8 and a 3-year-old car? We'll find out very soon. Also, Brad will have more insider tips at the trading post, but before that, here's Brendan Coogan with this week's alternative car for Alistair.
Well, Alistair, here on Used Car Heaven, we like to give you some alternatives to the traditional cars that you've been looking at, and so far you have looked at traditional 2-seater roadsters or sports cars. Well, here we think we've got a real alternative. This car allows you to have your cake and eat it. It is, of course, a Saab 9.3 2-litre turbo convertible. Oh, and it's yellow. You may have noticed that, not my colour, but perhaps it's yours, Alistair, I don't know. But it does give you lots of compromise in terms of being able to give your friends a lift, not just one at a time, but 3 at a time, so you can get the kids or your mates in the back. Inside, have a look. This SE is fully kitted. It's got airbags all around, full, very tasteful leather interior. It's got the computer, air conditioning, cruise control, traction control. It's got an automatic gearbox, which again with a car like this, I'd want manual, but I don't know about you, Alistair, but it's a superb car. Now it may be out of your price range. This S98 with 38,000 miles on the clock is about £13,000, but if you look around for a non-turbo version, perhaps sacrifice the leather and a bit of that kit, then you could be well inside your budget. So all in all, Alistair, this car can be all things to all people, and it is an alternative to the roadsters you've been driving. Power hood, bags of styling, lots of pose and lots of performance. So shop around and, well, it's just an alternative. Now, when the MGF first came out, I have to say I wasn't a fan, but it's the most perfectly balanced mid-engine sports car in its price range. It's a cracker. Now, underneath there is a cracking little 1800 fuel-injected engine. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but that's all you need in this car. Do have a look at the variable valve engines, what MG called the VVC engines. They did have some reliability problems, but they do add to performance. But this car is all about thrills and spills at low speed. Inside here isn't attractive, it's all beige. It does lend itself more to the British Racing Green MGFs than this blue one. Black interior would be far preferable. Having said that, it's a great little car. This is a V99. It's got 27,000 miles on the clock and it comes in at £9,300, which I think is great value for all of that sporting pedigree. If you go a little older and a little higher mileage, you'll get that even cheaper. And it just goes to show from the three cars that you're driving, Alistair, they're all still so different.
Thanks, Brendan. Well, the MG has a great badge, great heritage, but is this a great car?
Not really. There's a few clunks and bumps, and I'm not really sitting in it. I'm sitting on it.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can describe it.
I mean, the cars have got better over the years in terms of the build quality aspect. But I mean, we've got a real nasty creak behind us on the hood there somewhere, and
some squeaking somewhere.
It doesn't feel well put together, does it?
No, it's cobbled together, I think is the best way to describe it. There's a whistling somewhere. There's all sorts of things going on.
It goes pretty well. Would you say it's quicker than the Z3?
No, it's not quicker than the
Quite that
Z3.
same grunt.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But with the MX-5, it's probably on a par.
Yeah.
Maybe even, maybe on the VVC one, it may have just that bit extra. But certainly to drive, it's not. I'm not in tune with this thing. It's just I'm a passenger, definitely a passenger. I'm not in control.
Well, it's got a fantastic badge on it, the MG, but as a driver's car,
It's not all there, is it?
it isn't it? It's a big disappointment, this car, at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're not sat inside the car, you're sat on top of it. That's the best description I can give you for that.
It's not a bad-looking car, and it's a car that you think, oh, I really want to like this car.
That's
but
right.
The drive is a letdown. isn't
Yeah,
it?
it starts with the gearbox, just the interior. It's not, it's rattling. There's all different bits and pieces, but yeah, it's certainly not top of my list today.
I think the trouble with this car, I've driven quite a few of these, and every one seems to be different. One or two are good, one or two are indifferent, one or two are bad, to be perfectly honest, which is not what you want, is it?
No, I mean, this one here, I wouldn't buy this car.
No. Not even if it was £5 cheaper, you would probably wouldn't. No. Okay, we don't want your final decision just yet, but I think I know where you're heading as your first choice car, because before that we need to head off to the trading post. Here's Brad.
Here we have today one of the winners in the Ford range, the Ford Focus. Comes in 3 or 5 door models, a great size little hatchback. In my opinion, a better purchase than the Peugeot 307 or the Renault Megane. Drives a lot better. There's a few imports of these around, they've been built with some oddball specifications, for instance things like no air conditioning. If you're not too concerned about things like that, you can pick up a bargain. There's lots of these cars around on the road, as you've probably seen, but the residual values are still very, very high, which shows you what a good car it is. In my opinion, one of the best medium-sized hatchbacks on the road today.
Thanks, Brad. There'll be more insider tips at the Trading Post next week here on Used Car Heaven. But on this week's programme, we've been looking to find the perfect roadster, hopefully, for Alistair here. Had around £9,000 to £10,000 to spend, and we've had a good selection of cars for you to drive today.
Yep.
We want it in reverse order. You're 3, 2, 1. What are you putting number 3, please?
Well, it's got to be the MG.
I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, the MG just didn't really cut it for me today.
Big disappointment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great looking car, as we said before, but just as far as a driving car goes, I want something that I'm going to enjoy driving. I don't think I could enjoy driving.
And the build quality is not fantastic on it.
Yeah, there's a few rattles and shakes in this thing already, and it's only a few years old, so I don't know what it'd be like after a couple more.
You would kind of hope that with the latest MG products that they're producing, somebody will really go to town and produce a good version of this in the future, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good looking car, the new one, but hopefully they've got rid of some of the teething
You'd hope
problems
so.
with this one.
So what's number 2 then, please, Alistair?
Well, number 2 has got to be the BMW.
The Z3.
Yep. Now, it was a close run thing.
The 2 litre straight 6.
Yeah, it growls, and the only problem with this particular car is probably the price. It's probably just, on a 2 litre, it's probably just going to be out of my ballpark, I'm afraid.
And you were saying before that you're not so sure about looking for an older version of this and getting like a 1.8, 1.9 engine. Might be a bit underpowered.
Yeah, it just wouldn't, I don't think it'd have the same grunt as this one does.
So number 2 for the Z3, which means you've put the Mazda MX-5 as number 1 on your list. This is a cracking sports car, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. This is what a roadster should be. This car, you sit in the car, you feel a part of the car. I thought the power against the BMW was just a little bit inferior.
You can notice it, can't you?
You can do, but I don't think that that's not my main criteria for buying this car.
I think once you get on the right roads and you open this car up, it'll be a dream to drive, won't it?
Yeah, I think this is everything that I wanted in a roadster, and I think this would be the right car for me.
And it's in your budget. You can get a nice car for £9,500, £10,000.
Yeah, and might even have some money for a hard top at the end.
Yes, good point. Alistair, thanks for your time today.
Thanks very much.
That's it for this week's Used Car Heaven. Join us again here on Men and Motors next week.